Photos have surfaced of Kody and Robyn with 4 of their kids filming for presumably season 20, because we know season 19 is about.
Have you ever felt like you were trapped in a situation where every decision you made seemed to be controlled by someone else? Imagine living in a world where you're constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of who you can trust, and every relationship feels like it's being manipulated from behind the scenes. That's the heartbreaking reality for Robyn, and it's something that most of us can't even begin to understand. But the truth is, her story is all too common for those caught in toxic relationships, especially when manipulation, betrayal, and emotional abuse are at play. This isn't just a story about love gone wrong. This is a raw look at the emotional toll that a fractured family dynamic can have on an individual. It's about the hidden battles that happen behind closed doors, the power struggles that leave scars on the heart, and the slow, painful journey towards self-liberation. Robyn is at the center of this storm, trying to reclaim her life from the grip of 2 men, Kody and Dayton, who, on the surface, seem to be caring partners, but are really the architects of her emotional distress. Today, we're diving into a world where power control and emotional manipulation rule the day. Robyn, Dayton, and Kody are all players in this complex game, but each of them is carrying their own set of burdens, secrets, and heartache. And as you watch their story unfold, you'll begin to understand the psychological toll it takes on someone when they realize they've been living in a toxic web of deceit. This is the story of Robyn's fight for independence, her struggle to break free from the manipulation of Kody and Dayton, and her journey toward finding the courage to live on her own terms. It's messy, it's painful, and it's a reminder that sometimes the hardest thing to do is walk away from what feels like family. Because when manipulation is involved, you're never truly free. Welcome to Toaster Spill USA, I'm Meri Brown today. We're going deep into the emotional struggles and triumphs of a fractured family. So grab your snacks and get comfy, because this one's going to be a roller coaster. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the juicy details, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about how far people are willing to go for power control and self-liberation. To fully understand Robyn's struggle, we need to first set the stage and explore the web of relationships that make up her world. Imagine being a part of a polygamous family, where the lines between love, power, and control are constantly blurred. This is exactly the reality that Robyn, Dayton, and Kody are caught in. Their lives are intertwined in a complex web that isn't as simple as just a family. At the heart of this family dynamic is Robyn, a woman whose journey to find herself has been clouded by years of emotional manipulation and financial deceit. She's been juggling relationships with 2 men, Kody and Dayton, who both in their own ways have manipulated her into thinking that they are the only ones who have her best interests at heart. But behind the promises and the love, there's a different story, one filled with power, plays, hidden motives, and emotional abuse. Kody and Dayton are far from being the ideal partners. They each have their own flaws and dark secrets that slowly begin to unravel as Robyn starts questioning everything she's known. Kody, with his seemingly doing presence, has a history of making decisions that leave Robyn questioning her own worth. Dayton, though softer, doesn't escape the pattern of manipulation either. Financially, emotionally, and mentally, both men have kept Robyn tethered to their whims, ensuring that she never fully experiences the freedom of independence. The manipulation isn't just emotional, it's also financial. Robyn has been kept in the dark about key financial decisions that impact her life. Decisions made by Kody and Dayton. Decisions she never fully consented to. This web of deceit leaves Robyn feeling powerless as she struggles to regain control of her life. But as the pressure builds, so does her resolve to break free. This isn't just about escaping from 2 toxic relationships. It's about finding herself again, reclaiming her autonomy, and discovering that the strength to walk away from it all was within her all along. And as you can imagine, Robyn's journey towards self-liberation won't be easy, but every step she takes toward independence will make the emotional journey even more powerful. To witness Robyn's emotional journey has been nothing short of a battlefield, a constant fight to reclaim her sense of self amidst the chaos of manipulation, control, and emotional abuse. She hasn't just been navigating a polygamous family dynamic, she's been trying to survive within it. Both Kody and Dayton have played pivotal roles in keeping her tethered to a life of emotional unrest, each in their own way, contributing to a growing sense of isolation that Robyn couldn't escape, until she began to realize that she didn't have to live like this anymore. At first, Robyn's struggles seemed invisible to the outside world. She wore the mask of a beautiful wife, trying to balance her place in the family while managing the expectations of 2 very different men. But underneath a storm was brewing Kody, as the patriarch wielded a form of control that was more psychological than anything He wasn't overtly abusive, but it was the subtle emotional manipulation that stung the most. His coldness, his passive-aggressive remarks, and his distant demeanor created an environment where Robyn felt unseen and unheard. Kody's behavior toward Robyn was not just controlling, it was dismissive. There were moments when he made decisions without consulting her, ignoring her input, making her feel like an afterthought in her own life. When they did speak, it wasn't about her needs or desires. It was about what Kody wanted, what worked for him. And over time, those small moments of neglect piled up, leaving Robyn feeling emotionally suffocated. The constant togo-far between wanting to be a good partner and realizing that she was simply not being valued started taking a heavy toll on her. It wasn't just the silence that stung. It was the absence of care, of warmth, of consideration. She was existing in a relationship that had become devoid of genuine affection. Then there was Dayton, whose approach, though seemingly gentler, was just as insidious. His form of manipulation wasn't as direct as Kody's,
and has been absent from filming for much of season 18. Where is Dayton? What is going on with him?
But it was still powerful. Dayton played on Robyn's emotions, using his supposed love for her to keep her within his grasp. He would paint a picture of their future together, promising her things that only ever stayed as distant dreams. He would act as though Robyn were his one true partner, only to retreat emotionally when the pressure was on. It was this push-pull dynamic that kept Robyn confused. Dayton's promises were like empty words, and she couldn't escape the emotional toll they took. She wanted to believe in the future they could have, but the cycle of disappointment made it clear that her desires were secondary to his own, and the financial manipulation. Let's not forget that part. As much as Robyn wanted to be independent, she found herself locked into a system where she was dependent on Kody and Dayton for her financial security. Their control over the purse strings was another way to keep her in line. She was kept in the dark about the family's finances, forced to trust their decisions without ever being fully included in the process. This financial deceit wasn't just about money. It was about control, about ensuring that Robyn never felt she could walk away without risking everything. But as suffocating as this all was, Robyn began to change. She began to see the cracks in the system that had held her captive for so long. Her quest for autonomy didn't happen overnight, but it was a slow burn that eventually became undeniable. One key moment that stands out in her journey was when she decided to confront Kody about their future together. It wasn't a dramatic, fiery argument. It was a quiet but powerful realization that she could no longer live a life dictated by his rules. She wasn't just fighting for her own independence. She was fighting for the right to be seen and valued as an individual, not just as an extension of his control. Then there were the small acts of rebellion, moments that showed Robyn's growing awareness that she deserved more. In one episode, Robyn took a step back during a family gathering where Kody was dominating the conversation, refusing to give her any space to voice her thoughts. She quietly excused herself from the situation, a simple but profound act of defiance. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, it was Robyn's way of saying, "I'm done." She wasn't going to be an accessory in Kody's life anymore. These little moments built up until one day she couldn't ignore them any longer. Another pivotal moment came when Robyn began to openly question the family's dynamics. She wasn't confrontational, but there was a shift. In one episode, she started speaking up more during group discussions, refusing to let Kody and Dayton dictate the terms of their relationship. She stopped asking for permission. For the first time in a long while, Robyn was starting to carve out her own space, not just in her family, but in her own life. She was reclaiming her voice. As Robyn grew more self-aware, her emotional turmoil began to shift into something far more empowering. She realized that her path to self-liberation wasn't just about fighting Kody and Dayton. It was about fighting for herself. And with every small act of rebellion, every quiet decision to stand up for her needs, Robyn was building the foundation for the life she truly deserved. It wasn't going to be easy. The emotional toll had been years in the making, but the process of self-liberation had already begun, and there was no going back. Dayton's role in this family is a key one, and it's one that cannot be overlooked when we talk about manipulation and deceit. Unlike Kody, whose control is more overt and based on authority as the patriarch, Dayton operates in a subtler, often insidious way. His manipulation isn't loud or aggressive. It's more about emotional blackmail, subtle coercion, and financial leverage. It's this quiet manipulation that makes him so dangerous because it's hard to pinpoint until it's already too late. From the outset, Dayton used his relationship with Robyn as a way to keep her entangled in his web of control. Their dynamic isn't based on mutual trust or understanding. It's more about Dayton playing on Robyn's vulnerabilities. He constantly positioned himself as Robyn's true partner, the one who understood her in ways the other men did not. This false sense of intimacy created an illusion of security for Robyn. Dayton would say all the right things, promise her that they would have a future together, and yet never follow through his promises. While sweet were hollow and used as a tool to keep Robyn emotionally dependent on him, he dangled the hope of a future in front of her, knowing full well that he would never truly make the moves necessary to build it. One of Dayton's most potent manipulative tactics was his use of emotional blackmail. He knew how to tug on Robyn's heartstrings using her fear of losing him to control her decisions. There were countless moments throughout the series where Dayton would make Robyn feel guilty for wanting more for herself, if she even hinted at questioning the family's structure or Kody's behavior. Dayton would remind her of everything they had been through together and how it would be a betrayal to their bond. It was an emotional trap. If she didn't agree with Dayton, she risked losing him. And with that loss, she feared the very foundation of her sense of self would collapse. Dayton understood this vulnerability and he exploited it at every turn. But Dayton didn't just use emotional manipulation. He also weaponized financial leverage. He wasn't as obvious about it as Kody.
She's looking at it and our kids would be like, oh, it's so fun to watch you guys. You know, I'm a fool for my woman. I love her.
But Dayton had a hand in the family's financial decisions that affected Robyn's autonomy. There were moments when Robyn expressed a desire to take control of her own finances to have a say in how the family's money was spent, but Dayton would quietly shut her down. He would remind her that their future together was a joint effort, but in reality, this was just a way to keep her financially dependent on him by making Robyn feel that she couldn't make independent financial decisions. Dayton further solidified his control over her. If Robyn wanted to step out of this suffocating dynamic, she would need more than just emotional strength. She would need financial independence, and Dayton made sure to keep her from gaining that Dayton's interactions. With Kody also played a role in the way the family dynamic unfolded. At times, Dayton played the role of the peacemaker trying to mediate between Robyn and Kody, but his true intentions were rarely pure. While he seemed to be trying to smooth things over, he was subtly working to maintain his hold over Robyn. It's as if Dayton saw himself as an equal to Kody, but without the same authority. So he used different tactics to gain his power in the family, while Kody used his role as the patriarch to assert his dominance. Dayton used his relationship with Robyn to manipulate her into thinking that his intentions were always in her best interest. This two-pronged approach, manipulating both Robyn and Kody, meant that Dayton could remain under the radar while still controlling the situation from behind the scenes. One particularly telling moment in the series was when Dayton appeared to confront Robyn about her desire for independence. But rather than giving her the space to explore her feelings, he weaponized his love for her. He told her that if she left, she would be abandoning their shared dreams, guilt-tripping her into staying in the family's toxic orbit. It was one of those classic emotional manipulation tactics where Dayton made Robyn feel like she couldn't leave without causing irreparable damage. At the same time, he would never truly give her what she wanted: real autonomy, respect, and equality in the relationship. Instead, he kept her on a leash, not with physical chains, but with psychological ones. And let's not forget the way Dayton played the role of the victim in the family. He would often present himself as misunderstood or underappreciated, particularly when Robyn started questioning their future together. He knew exactly how to twist the narrative to make himself look like the martyr, which only further kept Robyn in a position of guilt and self-doubt. If she spoke up for herself, Dayton would make her feel like she was turning her back on someone who loved her unconditionally. This emotional manipulation created a toxic environment where Robyn never felt safe to express her true feelings. Dayton didn't give her the space to make her own choices. Instead, he always made her feel like she was a bad person for even considering them. In the moments where Dayton did interact with Kody, it was clear that he was trying to keep Kody's focus off of him and his role in the family's dysfunction. Dayton played the quiet game, letting Kody take the brunt of the criticism while he worked in the background. But make no mistake, Dayton was just as manipulative, just as deceitful, and just as emotionally abusive as Kody. He didn't need to be loud to have control. Dayton's quiet manipulation his ability to use emotional blackmail and financial leverage made him just as dangerous as Kody, if not more so. Robyn's eventual realization of Dayton's manipulative tactics was a wake-up call, but it was also a painful one. It meant that she was not just trapped in a toxic marriage with Kody. She was also emotionally trapped by Dayton's manipulation. Ultimately, Dayton's role in the family dynamics cannot be overlooked. His manipulation, though quieter and more subtle than Kody's, played a major role in perpetuating the family's dysfunction. Dayton's actions were a stark reminder of how toxic relationships can remain hidden in plain sight, how manipulation can go unnoticed when it's wrapped in the guise of love and promises of a shared future. But as Robyn started to wake up to the truth, she realized that Dayton wasn't the loving partner he claimed to be. He was just another player in the game of emotional control and deceit. And in the end, Robyn would have to choose between her loyalty to Dayton and her loyalty to herself. Kody Brown has always been the self-proclaimed patriarch of his polygamous family. But what many don't realize is how his dominance goes far beyond just the emotional and psychological manipulation. His control over the family's finances is equally manipulative, and this is one of the most glaring aspects of his power play. Throughout the series, viewers have seen Kody repeatedly use his position to maintain dominance, not just over his wives, but over their shared financial resources as well. It's a subtle yet deliberate strategy that keeps the women in a constant state of dependence, which of course further feeds his need to control them. One of the clearest moments of Kody's financial manipulation comes through his handling of the family's collective money. Early on, it's clear that the Browns' financial situation is in disarray, and Kody uses this as an opportunity to exert control. Instead of being transparent about the family's financial difficulties, he manipulates the situation to make his wives feel that they have no choice but to follow his lead. Kody is able to shape the financial decisions in ways that benefit him and allow him to maintain the illusion of authority.
I mean, did I know? Do you remember me saying that word to you?
No,
I didn't use the word, did I?
You mocked the word.
Oh, I did?
Whether it's the struggle surrounding the family's real estate investments or the ongoing battle for resources, Kody's leadership always seems to put his needs first. But it's not just about the money, it's about power. Kody uses finances as a way to divide the family, creating rifts between his wives when they don't agree on how resources should be distributed. The financial deceit becomes another way for him to manipulate them into feeling like they're constantly on unstable ground, making it harder for them to rise above their situation. It's a masterclass in emotional blackmail, where he's able to undermine their independence through financial dependency. One moment that particularly highlights Kody's controlling behavior is when he tries to influence the wives into making financial decisions that align with his desires, but without fully informing them of the real risks or costs involved. For example, Kody's insistence on moving forward with the Coyote Pass project without taking full responsibility for the financial burdens it places on his wives leaves them in a precarious position. His promises of future gains always seem to be wrapped in just enough optimism to blind them to the truth. He's more interested in maintaining his power than ensuring the family's financial stability. Through all of this, Kody's true intentions become clearer. It's not about building a happy family. It's about building a family that serves him and his desires. His control over finances only amplifies. The emotional manipulation and the effects on his wives are undeniable. They are trapped in a cycle, and it's hard to see how they can break free from this web of deceit. Kody's behavior isn't just controlling, it's toxic. And as the seasons unfold, his attempts to manipulate the family with financial leverage only become more apparent. The emotional toll on his wives is clear, and it's heartbreaking to witness how they've been forced to choose between loyalty to Kody and their own emotional and financial freedom. Robyn's journey towards self-liberation is nothing short of a powerful emotional awakening. For so long, she was trapped in a cycle of emotional manipulation and psychological control, not just from Kody, but also from Dayton. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when Robyn began to realize the truth about her situation. It was more of a slow, simmering understanding that began to take root deep inside her. But once that seed of awareness was planted, it grew rapidly, and with it came an intense internal struggle. For a long time, Robyn lived in a state of emotional paralysis. She would question the decisions that Kody and Dayton made, but those doubts were often silenced by her fear of losing them, or worse, losing her sense of belonging. She was constantly torn between the life she had been taught to accept and the life she secretly longed for. Her inner thoughts must have been chaotic, torn between the emotional bonds that had been manipulated into place and her growing realization that something wasn't right. But then came the tipping point, the moment when Robyn realized that she was not just a passive participant in the family's dysfunction, but an active player in her own story. One of the key moments came when Robyn finally said enough. The emotional grip of Kody and Dayton was no longer enough to keep her silent. She started to vocalize her need for change, her need for more. In several episodes, you could see the shift in her demeanor. She wasn't the same woman who had once let Kody's coldness and Dayton's subtle manipulation keep her small and hidden. She started to demand respect, to stand up for her feelings, and most importantly, to take control of her own narrative. In one emotional conversation, Robyn said that she couldn't keep sacrificing herself for a family dynamic that wasn't serving her. This moment was a breakthrough. It was like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she finally acknowledged that she deserved more. She was ready to stop being the passive recipient of love that came with strings attached. Strings that were all about control and manipulation. What made Robyn's journey so relatable was how raw and honest it was. Viewers saw her at her lowest, caught in a web of confusion and self-doubt, and then witnessed her slowly but surely begin to untangle herself. It wasn't easy and it wasn't immediate, but every small step forward was a victory. The emotional conflict she went through, feeling torn between her loyalty to the family and her desire for self-respect, was something that many people could understand. Whether you've been stuck in a toxic relationship, a manipulative situation, or just felt the weight of being controlled, Robyn's journey was a mirror of those internal battles we all face when we finally find the courage to take control of our own lives. Her moments of rebellion, whether it was standing up to Kody or calling Dayton out for his emotional manipulation, represented more than just small victories. They were signs of her reclaiming her power. And in that process, she not only liberated herself, but also set an example for viewers that they too could choose their own path, no matter how hard or uncertain it might. Robyn's journey to self-liberation was ultimately about rediscovering her voice and her worth, and that in itself was a triumph for anyone watching. As Robyn began to carve out her own path towards self-liberation, the reactions from the rest of the family were a mixture of support, confusion, and at times resentment. Christine, Janelle, and Meri all had different perspectives on what was happening, and those differences only added to the already tense atmosphere within the family. Christine, who had been through her own journey of emotional struggle with Kody, seemed to understand Robyn's need for autonomy. You could see a level of empathy in Christine's eyes, as though she recognized the same signs of emotional toll that she herself had faced. While Christine didn't necessarily step in to directly intervene, there was a quiet understanding. She knew firsthand the kind of control that Kody exerted, and Robyn's decision to fight back resonated with her. Janelle, on the other hand, seemed more reserved in her support. Though she never outright opposed Robyn's decisions, it was clear that Janelle was walking a fine line. She had always been more independent in her own relationship with Kody, so her approach was more pragmatic, perhaps too practical to fully understand the depth of Robyn's emotional turmoil. Meri, unfortunately, seemed more aligned with Kody's side, often staying silent or offering minimal support for Robyn's actions. It was as though Meri, still clinging to her own troubled relationship with Kody, wasn't ready to break free from the toxic dynamic herself. This created an unspoken division within the family, with Robyn caught in the middle, trying to redefine her own space while navigating these complex and often conflicting family dynamics. As Robyn takes bold steps toward independence, the future for her, Dayton and Kody, seems uncertain, filled with both hope and potential heartbreak. Robyn's journey toward self-liberation is just beginning. She's tasted freedom and there's no turning back. But the road ahead is not without obstacles. Kody's manipulative hold over her is not easily broken, and Dayton's presence in the family dynamic still casts a long shadow. How long will Robyn be able to stay strong in her quest for autonomy? Will she continue to stand firm against their controlling ways, or will the pressure of the fractured family force her to make tough choices for Dayton and Kody? Their grip on the family is loosening, but that doesn't mean they'll go down. Without a fight, Will they change their ways, or will they continue to manipulate those around them to retain power? Can they truly be redeemed, or are they doomed to repeat their toxic behaviors? What happens next could either be a story of healing and personal growth or one of continued struggle. Robyn's future and the future of the family as a whole remains up in the air. What do you think? Will Robyn find peace and independence, or will the fractures within the family be too deep to heal the eye? Real question is, how far will she go to reclaim her life? Only time will tell. What an emotional ride this has been. Right, Robyn's journey towards self-liberation reminds us all of the importance of recognizing manipulation in relationships and the power we each have to reclaim our lives. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt controlled or trapped, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Remember, you're not alone, and there's always hope for change. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Robyn's story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Toast or Spill USA for more compelling content. Stay tuned for our next episode. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.